Spoiler warning. The following discussion will contain spoilers. We recommend checking out the movie first, then coming back to hang with us. But if you don't care about that, glad to have you here. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Real Review. My name is Kevin.
And I'm John.
And we are The Real Movie Guys. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about The Meg as part of our special series, Stay Out of the Water Month. The Meg stars Jason Statham. It's about a group of scientists who get stuck at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. Jonas Taylor is recruited to save their lives as he is the only one with the ability to save them from such depths. Ugh, can't talk today. However, the scientists are not alone as they have discovered and released a dangerous creature the world had thought was extinct, the Megalodon.
It's Megalodon.
Dun, 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 dun.
The Megalodon. So I remember when this movie came out. I actually went to the theater to go see this movie, because I actually do like trashy Sharknado-esque type movies. I do. I actually do enjoy those for the most part. So that's what I thought I was getting with this movie. John, did you see this movie prior to viewing it for this video, or?
No, but I've heard about it.
Right.
Like I heard people talk about like this movie, and it never drew across my mind to like actually go watch it because honestly, it was just like I didn't know what it was. I thought it was going to be another terrible retake of Jaws movie, like the third Jaws or one of those.
Right.
So I stayed away from it.
Well, there's a couple things. When I see these kind of movies, these trashy, like, I would argue less than B level movies, I look for just having a good time, like not taking yourself too seriously, stupid violence. I love the stupid violence. I think that's great. I love the gore, clever kills, ridiculous premise, keeping my attention. And unfortunately, I feel like this movie didn't do what I was looking for this movie. But I do want to start off with some positives. So the main positive I would say in this movie is Jason Statham is the main character in this movie. By far, he carries everything in this movie. I would even argue he doesn't do anything different than he normally does for movies. But again, he carries the weight of this movie. What did you think of him in this movie?
I thought he was awesome in this movie. I also though thought that most of the characters in this movie were relatively decently played.
Nah, you look like you might actually know what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say anyone was terrible.
I feel like they all played their part in a way,
right,
and they all did what they needed to do. And like, yeah, he blew it out of the water with this, but I didn't think like the other people were so bad behind him that it made it a worse movie than that.
Well, here's the thing. I'll say, I'll leave it at that. Jason Statham is great. All right. I mean, we know he can carry a movie. Even more ironically, I looked this up and I heard about this before, but I wasn't too sure. He's like a crazy good swimmer in real life. He actually was. Let me just look this up. Sorry, I got my little thing here. He was part of the 1990 Commonwealth Games and represented England in diving. So he actually did most of his own, swimming work in this movie, which, is always a plus, of course, for that. Considering everything in this movie is, I would say 90% of this, no, that's being generous. 95% of this movie is pretty fake. It's terrible CGI throughout this movie. We'll get into that. But it's great to see Jason Statham. He's just having a good time being his, charismatic self throughout the time. Going, oh my God. And, just saving people and not taking any crap. There's a scene earlier on where he's just drinking, having a good time on an island. I'm like, was that really what he wanted to do this movie for? I feel like it was. I feel like that wasn't really acting at that point.
Well, I like how the one guy comes up to him and he goes, "Man, you're always drinking and you're always drunk." And he goes, "How do you know I'm always drinking?" And the guy goes, "Because every time I see you, you're drinking."
You drink too much.
And now you're only saying that because I literally have a beer in my hand.
You always have beer in your hand. You know why?
Because I drink too much?
No, it was a great scene. It really is. And like I said, Jason Statham, he carries this movie. You know, as far as the charm and appeal, he's everything I would want in a protagonist in a movie like this. So that's great. Another positive I would say is a lot of the ship designs I really liked. I did like the sea crafts, the orb concept. There's a ship that they use when they go diving. It's pretty much they go inside of an orb, and then the ship's wrapped around it. It kind of looks like Star Warsy effect levels. It's really cool. I think it's cool that the 3D, you know, they have the touch screens where they can move stuff on the screens and stuff like that. I thought that was really interesting. Really cool designs. The underground water station is really good. I thought that looked great. Again, from a design standpoint, CGI standpoint's another story, but a design standpoint, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Even the shark actually looks pretty cool. I liked, they tried to make him look realistic to an extent. At least his anatomy was realistic. Like he had the gills going. His shape was about right for a megalodon. It wasn't anything too outrageously horror. Didn't look genetically altered or anything like that. They actually tried to make something that looked competently scary and realistic. Again, CGI, you know, not doing it any favors, but I think it did look competent for the most part. The design wise, I think it looked good.
See, the weird thing is that the last movie that I watched was Jaws Revenge.
Oh God.
And just looking at the Megalodon in this movie,
Yeah.
blows that one out of the water.
That's
and just
sad.
like when going into this movie, I went into it thinking, okay, this movie's gonna be like the absolute worst.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it no hope, but like you were saying, the bay where they stay at, the underground bay with the water all around it and stuff, I felt like that looked pretty cool, like kind of like realistic in a way.
Well, they make fun of it, right? I think Rainn Wilson, who's also in this movie, we'll talk about him again later. They're going in an elevator and it looks like crap, and he's like, "Oh, this is all my money's being spent on. Oh, I expected something a little more." And then the doors open up and it looks all futuristic, and he's like, "Oh, okay, this is better. This is what I was actually looking for." So I thought that was great.
Welcome to the old level.
Nice.
It kind of speaks for the tone of the movie. Like, it looks like crap, but then, all right, you're going for something. You got a little style going on. Good stuff. Also, I think the premise was kind of cool for this movie. Again, it's nothing too original, but I like to compliment it when I see it. The Meg coming up from the heat vents in the trench, I think is kind of cool. There was like a crack, and that's how it was able to come up through the ocean. I thought that was a cool concept, and they have a whole scene where they give it a little science. You know, they try. Yeah. I don't know how reliable that science is. I'm not a scientist, so couldn't tell you. But again, to me as a viewer, I'm like, all right, I get you. That was conceivable. You know, that wasn't too out of this world right there.
Yeah.
Cool scene. Like I said, they explained it. They did a good job. They did their whole movie science thing, so I appreciate that.
I also think that the way they introduced the Megalodon too, like when he came up from the bottom of the ocean,
right?
And he just bit like their glass, but he didn't like shatter it. But they just knew, like, right. Okay, he's here now. You know, like it wasn't like they had to make it so like drastically that he showed up, like he started killing things. It's just like they knew right then and there.
Right. That was definitely one of my favorite scenes in the movie. They have a whole tracking shot where the young girl, she's pretty much being like eyeballed by the shark in the tube. He's following her, and you know, she has this little, I guess that's product placement. It must be a real toy. I don't really know. But she's playing with this like orb that's traveling across the floor.
Oh, yeah. And
then the shark just bites the glass out of nowhere. Yeah, I think it's really cool. Again, CGI-wise, I wouldn't say it's very great looking. It didn't age well, and this movie's not that old. It's only 2018 it came out, and it's 2020 right now. Take that for what it's worth. But again, a really cool scene. That was definitely one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It was very, very cool. Very cool. Also, I'll give the credit for the whole bigger shark idea. I think is great. I mean, I expected once they killed the first shark, I'm like, oh, the movie's not over yet. I looked at the timestamp, and I remember even even before that, when I first saw it in the theater, I'm like, oh, okay, well, like they killed the shark, and then a bigger shark comes. I'm like, what the hell is that? That's ridiculous. ridiculously awesome, right? It's not even bad. I would say it's actually pretty cool that there was an even bigger shark to eat that one. And they even make fun of it in the movie. They talk about like, oh, what, we're just going to kill this one and another one's going to come and then another one and another one. They keep talking. I thought that was great. And that was a cool surprise. That subverted expectations in a good way, having a bigger shark.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. I'll also give Go ahead. What do you got?
I also thought it was good though, like, you know how like he says he's gonna tell all the embassies around that this thing's out.
Right.
And then they go hunting it for themselves. And when he blows up all the stuff, they drop it from the helicopter and blows it all up. And then he goes over there and they swim over there like, and they're just sitting on like that whale or whatever.
Right.
And then it comes and eats them. That's one of the parts I like, because I was like, it kind of serves him like kept saying, no, we need more, we need more, and they kind of like wasted all of it to not even get the right thing.
No, you're right. It's really fun. It's a good scene. The last positive I'll give the movie is I really did like the ending. Actually, I did like the final quote-unquote fight with the giant Megalodon. I like Jason Statham, again, his charisma just carrying that scene. You know, he cuts up the belly of the shark, and then he like stabs it in the eye. And I thought that was really cool. Like I said, I really liked the end. I thought that was cool. Good fight. A weird, not what I expected as far as an end fight with a giant shark. You know, it wasn't the cliche, we're just going to blow him up and that's the end of the story. He actually kind of went toe-to-toe with a shark, so...
Yeah,
good for him.
I thought when they did that scene, I was like, wow, that's like a perfect way to kill off like the shark, like in a way of like just cutting him open,
right?
And then all the other sharks kind of feeding on him.
Yeah, that was really wild, right? Like all the other sharks like feeding on him. Like, all right, that's pretty cool.
Which kind of makes sense, but it doesn't make sense because he's still in the water with it, like,
right?
But still.
So yeah, and that's where I pretty much lie with that. Again, I think the ending was great. You know, nothing wrong with that. However, now we get into some of the bad stuff. Unfortunately, this movie has a lot of bad stuff going for it. The CGI is absolutely terrible, which I feel like is almost unexcusable. The reason why I'm more harsh on this than I would be maybe like if this movie released on like the Sci-Fi Channel, I'd be like, okay, you know, you only had a certain amount of money to work with and that was your budget. This was a huge theatrical release, this movie. There is actually a cult following for the books. I know this actually is based on like a 5-book series, the Megalodon series. I don't know much about it. I know, you know, I don't know if it stayed close to it. I feel like it didn't. Could be wrong. But again, I expected a lot, and the CGI it's really bad at times. I mean, I feel like you could almost see the green screen like flopping out from the corners sometimes of this movie. It was that bad. Especially the underwater scenes just didn't do it for me. I don't know if it has something to do with the conversion, because I know this movie was in 3D as well, so I don't know if that has something to do with it. But it looked ugly overall. It really, unfortunately, looks really ugly, this movie. It's almost hard to look past it, especially if you are watching this in such a high definition. I was watching it in 4K. It's really hard to look past sometimes. It's an ugly movie. That being said, the acting as well, I think is pretty terrible. I know you complimented some of it. Unfortunately, I don't feel the same way. Again, Jason Statham carries this movie. You have Rainn Wilson, who's of Office fame, who I love, don't get me wrong, but every time the man spoke, it was almost instant cringe humor for me. I chuckled here and there, but I wouldn't say I flat out laughed. Mildly offensive, even some of the jokes he was going for here, where, he's speaking to the, Mei Ying, she's one of the, characters on the boat. She's Asian and she's speaking in Chinese, and he's just trying to mimic it.
Hi.
Hung Hao Xin Jian Dao Now.
Oh boy, here we go. One of the miscommunication jokes going on. Nothing special. I will give, I didn't give her credit. Ruby Rose was fine in this movie. I think she actually is a decent actress.
Not a problem.
I know she gets a lot of hate right now for being on, she was on Batwoman, now that she's no longer part of it. I think she did serviceable as far as, her part. I believe his name is, I can't remember the guy. He's from, I think it's Robert Taylor. I could be wrong. But he was from Fear the Walking Dead, who I thought he was maybe serviceable. Everyone's pretty much serviceable at this point, is what I'm getting across for this movie. Just serviceable for me. Nothing special. I hate to say it. Like, I really didn't care about any of these characters except for Jason Statham. He's the only character I honestly cared about. John, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the character? I know you liked them, so what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought they were actually pretty good. I thought that, I mean, like you said about Rainn Wilson, I feel like that was the one character
Mm-hmm.
that I kind of like. Every time I wanted to like him,
Right.
but he didn't come off to me as like the character he was playing though either.
Why don't you just put a tracker on it? Did you guys ever watch Shark Week?
Right.
Like he didn't play that character well because I don't think it's
right?
I don't think it suited his personality though either.
No.
Like I felt like he was also trying too hard to be something that he wasn't, because
Okay.
it kind of made it seem like he's supposed to be this extravagant man who's got so much money and all this stuff
Right.
that he's just kind of messing up, making all this money just disappear here. Like he doesn't really seem to care about his money, but he was playing more of like a character of like, I felt like he just wanted to be liked and stuff, you know?
Yeah, it was very, very inconsistent portrayal. It was, you got to pick a lane and stay in it, especially in these kind of movies where we're not expecting Oscar-worthy performances, but still we're expecting, at least a consistent character. And, I didn't see that like you pointed out. I definitely didn't see that.
Well, and also like with Jason Statham's like ex-wife or whatever she was.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to play like a bigger role in it.
Yeah, she was kind of
But she kind of just played the role of like she got stuck, so that had him help everybody out. And then all of a sudden she was kind of like just in an emergency room for like the rest of the time almost. And then she'd come out again, and then it was like kind of weird.
Right. And then, I know the other characters, their first language wasn't English. I do know they spoke Chinese, so their English maybe wasn't the best. So I don't want to say that their acting was bad because I don't think that's fair. But I did see, I don't know if they just weren't hitting the right beats. So I feel like that's the director's fault for maybe not showing them the right beats to hit. Because some of they came a little too across to Godzilla for me, which I don't like. I just think their performances were that great. I hate to say it.
Yeah, I thought their dad though did pretty good though. I thought his character was very believable. Like when his daughter was at risk, I thought it was good.
We did what people always do. Discover and then destroy.
I guess I expected more. That's what it was. You had this interesting story, and yeah, I expected more from it. It just wasn't there for me.
That's because you paid that $20 to see it in the movies.
I guess so. So that being said, also the humor, like I said before, is super cringy. A lot of the humor in this movie just didn't nail it at all for me. Rainn Wilson's humor, also Masaoka, who's from Heroes. He plays a character named Toshi. Him and the other guy, when they're stuck in the bottom of the ocean, the scientists, they make like a lot of weird sexual humor, and it was just like, okay, I don't know what you're going. I mean, I guess it's funny, just not in the context you're trying to go for here.
Oh yeah, because she had to like put it in or something.
We are go for insertion.
Insertion.
Is everything sexual with you guys?
Sex, food, power, and money.
Blow it up now.
Yeah, and and it was stupid. It was a really, really bad joking, and again didn't do anything for me. The humor, teach his own though.
I actually kind of thought it was a bit funny too, like when the fat guy, that guy who's down there, the fat guy.
Right.
I don't remember his name.
I know.
But then he's like swimming at the end of the boat,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just swimming. And they're like, "No, you gotta get closer. No, you gotta get closer." And I was thinking to myself, like, something's gonna happen here. This guy barely can swim at all, and he's like, "Okay, hold on." Like you just knew something was gonna happen there.
No, I know you're right. But yeah, like I said, the humor didn't nail for me. Also, I do feel the movie was kind of pretty boring at times. I think there's like when there wasn't action, it was just very long scenes of exposition about characters and their motivations. When you could show us, not tell us, they're just very long. Maybe if you trimmed this movie by like a half hour, it would have nailed it better because it's overly long. If you trimmed it, I think that would have been better.
See, I also didn't agree with that. Like I felt like it was like a perfect length too.
Really?
Like there was no time in it where I was like, all right, I kind of want this movie to end.
I think just like they were trying to have like I would say they're trying to have actual like human interactions on screen.
Thank you for keeping your promise.
You don't quit trying to get to the moon because you lose an astronaut. You charge forward.
and they just don't come across that way. They're so bad and corny. So if you can't do it right, then don't do it at all. To be honest, that's not what this movie should have been aiming for. It should have just been a fun, crazy ride, and to an extent it has that. It's just some of these other things just bog it down too much for me. And that was definitely one of the things. I think it's overall, there's a lot of boring scenes where I'm just like very disinterested with what's going on. Let's get back to the Meg storyline, the Megalodon. It does take quite a while for them to even get to the actual Megalodon story. I think I timed it. It's almost 40 minutes before we actually get to the Megalodon. That's a long time to even be worried about what to even have an idea of what's going on with the Megalodon. I mean, you know what you're going to go see. Give it to me a little sooner at that point. 40 minutes is a long time.
Yeah, but like we've also said with Jaws though too, it was all about the suspense and everything.
Yeah, this ain't no suspense.
It's all about the lead up to it.
There's no lead up. It's just no. We're not there. This ain't no Jaws. Like I said, overall, I think this movie's just too generic. I've seen this a million times, so it didn't do anything new for me. Pretty much said, I like Jaws, I like Godzilla, let's smash those two together and we're going to make a movie. That's essentially what this movie is. There's nothing really spectacular about it. Other than that, it's just those two things put together. So if you like those two things, you like to see them together, that's great. You're not going to be disappointed as far as that's concerned. The main thing, I think my main issue with this movie, not even, though the other things are a problem, don't get me wrong, but I think the fact it's PG-13 hurts it the most. There's barely any blood in this movie. When you go to these movies, you go for the gore fest. You go for that crazy violence and nonsense.
And intestines getting ripped out.
Yeah, you go for that. This movie had a lot of issues, which I looked into because I wanted to know a little more information. Originally, the Meg was supposed to be being made by Disney. Believe it or not, Disney was supposed to be originally making this movie. And then Warner Brothers picked it up from them, and Eli Roth was actually going to direct the project, which Eli Roth, we know, is the god of horror. I'm not even going to go into what Eli Roth has made. I'm sure most of you viewers have seen that. So, he was having the R rating, going to be blood and guts and violence. Then he dropped the project. He left. He had a lot of issues with the studio. They didn't want it to be an R-rated film. They told him right away, no, PG-13. And then I know they slashed his budget quite considerably. He wanted a much larger budget for this movie. And I'm like, no, you're not getting that. You're making a PG-13 fest where all the 13-year-olds and under can come, go all the teenagers can come and go see it and have a good time. We want a 3D fest. That ultimately is what this movie is. That's what it was made for. That's the audience it's made for.
Yeah,
and I think that stinks. I think if we got the Eli Roth version of the Meg, I think that would have been a lot more interesting. But unfortunately, that's not at all what we got. I wish it was more. I wish there was more, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
What are your thoughts? What other thoughts do you have? Is there anything else maybe that bothered you in the movie, or?
Not really, per se. Overall, I wasn't too disappointed in it.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I would say then in that case, I would say it's odd that this movie, a lot of it's filmed in China, oddly. And it's not, and normally it's not something I would put out, but we've seen this a lot more recently where they cater to a different market. We saw it in some of the more recent Transformers movies where there's a Chinatown scene, and it seems like it's shot for another audience, which that's what this movie felt like to me. You have, up until the end of the movie, the whole beach sequence of this movie, it felt like it was shot for an entirely different audience. This wasn't for an American audience. I feel like it was catering to a totally different culture. And it's funny, if you actually, I feel like you can splice out the whole end of this movie. If you splice out that whole scene, you can put it in, use it in another entirely different movie that's not related because they don't feel connected.
Well, yeah. The other thing,
really weird.
Yeah, well, yeah, like you say too, when they were speaking about where the shark was heading, it was kind of okay, I don't understand what you're getting at.
The geography,
and then they're
odd.
They're oh well, this is the most populated beach here.
Right.
And when they showed you on the map, it looked way different than when they showed it actuality.
Right.
Because they had a whole different landscape on it, and then they showed you this thing, and it was totally different.
No,
so I was really confused.
Yeah, again, the geography was a question, and the fact that like I said, it felt like they took a clip out of another movie and just put it in this one. It did feel attached.
Those people running in the balls in the ocean.
Right. That was kind of cool. I'll give him that. That was kind of cool. That was a cool choice.
I mean, that
I want to
doesn't-
do that. I've never done that. I would like to do that. That'd be pretty wild.
That doesn't
too.
seem like that will ever work anywhere. Like,
No, it's not going to work.
you hit a rock.
Probably
and there
shouldn't
you
be
go.
doing that. It was cool though. I guess I give them that. All right, that was cool. And then they did pay a weird tribute to Jaws, where the little boy is asking his mother to go into the water, and she's like, no, and he's like, let me go, let me go, let me go, let me. He keeps like saying it over and over again. That was from the original Jaws, that scene. So, and she's even wearing the same bathing suit as the mother was on the beach. So I think that's kind of funny. Again, like a little joke.
For some odd reason, I thought somebody in that movie had a Jaws shirt on.
I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe I missed it. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, it was that on the nose with what it was trying to be. But we've come to the end of the video at this point. I think we've pretty much said all we can about the Meg. My final score for the Meg is I'm going to give it a D-.
Thanks for saving our asses!
Unfortunately, it didn't live up to what I wanted. Again, if I wanted this kind of movie, I just would have watched it on the Sci-Fi Channel. That would have been fine for me. For this to be considered, it did make a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. I looked at the box office return. They are actually making a sequel to this movie because it made so much money. Again, it's not a shark. It's not as crazy as Sharknado. It's not to that extent where I would be like, all right, well, I'll forgive it because it's so zany. It just feels very mediocre and uninspired. If it wasn't for Jason Statham, I probably would have checked out a lot earlier in this movie. He's the only reason why I stuck around. But yeah, my final score, D-. John, where do you land on with the Meg?
See, I'll give the Meg a C.
You're a good man. Hey, can I offer either of you two a beer? Because I'm gonna have a beer.
I thought it was an average movie.
Right.
I didn't think it had that much spectacular to it.
Right.
But I definitely don't think it's as low as you thought it was.
Right.
Like I also maybe I didn't look at it as closely as you did either with the whole CGI and everything.
Right.
But I kind of just looked at it for like a whole movie together. Like, but to me, it was just a C. Like it wasn't nothing blown out of the water.
Hey, you're entitled to your wrong opinion.
You know, he looks heroic and he walks fast, but he's kind of got a negative attitude.
You know, I always say that. Like I said, if it wasn't for Jason Statham, I think this movie would have been an F. To be honest with you, it was really there. Again, I did like some things. I do like the shark final battle, like I said earlier. Is it enough to save this movie? It's enough to save it from being a failure, I think. So D- is where I'm at. That's where I'm gonna stay. Hey, that's what I got for you guys. So John, where can the people find us at home if they're interested in checking us out?
You could find us on Twitter at TheReelMovieGuy.
Mm-hmm.
You could also find us on YouTube at TheReelMovieGuys. You can come check out our content, subscribe to our channel, like our videos, give us your opinion on these movies that you watched, and tell us what you thought about them.
Yeah.
And you could also find us on many podcast platforms such as
for your listening pleasure, we are available on iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Radio Public, and Pocket Casts. Be sure to give us a listen at any of those fine places if you already are right now. Hey, we greatly appreciate it. Just search Real Movie Guys and we'll pop right up for you. I'd like to thank all you guys for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. That guy over here, he's John. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. And don't forget, stay out of the water. We'll catch you next time.
See ya!